Hi, my name's Ed from edthorn.com, here to try and help you guys make the most out of your home studios. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a 5-step drum bus processing technique with 5 Waves audio plugins that are going to help you nail your drum sound. And if you're an EDM or hip-hop producer using samples, stick around till the end of the video where I have a bonus plugin to show you that really kills it on drum samples. All right, so here we are in Logic for a session I recorded drums on for fellow YouTuber Paul Third. There's an in-depth behind-the-scenes video linked on screen now that talks about how I recorded the drum parts, the cheat chart I wrote, the microphones I used, the preamps, and so on. There's loads of information in that video. It's well worth a watch. So let's have a listen to the drums on their own, but we're just going to take off the bus processing. Now, on these channels, you will see, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen there, there's no processing on any of these channels as I flick through them. Some panning for some stereo image. Okay, there's a high-pass filter on the crotch mic. Watch the video to find out about that. Bit of EQ on the ride, and other than that, there is no processing whatsoever. Step number 1 is to EQ your drum bus. Now, this is a technique called top-down mixing. Instead of going into each and every individual drum mic and EQing and processing them separately, which is very time-consuming, what I'm doing is starting at the top with a drum bus. So I've just applied a little bit of this stock Logic EQ just because it's easily available. Waves have some great EQs as well, particularly the Q10 parametric and the F6, which I've also got a video out about, which I'll link in the description below. So this is with and without the EQ. Step 2 is either going to be a transient shaper or a bus compressor. Let's start with the transient shaper first. So here we have Smack Attack from Waves Audio. Smack Attack is a transient shaper. This enables us to influence and shape the duration of the transient, the shape of the transient, and how long it sustains for. We have 3 different transient shapes here to start with, and we can affect the duration as well. Now, if we have this down at 0.5, which is the shortest it will go to, that's basically acting as a compressor and is going to squash the transient as soon as it's hit. The longer we leave this, the more of the transient comes through and the more of the sustain note comes in before this will squash the signal. Then we can shape the sustain of the transient as well, and there's 3 different transient shapes we have here, and we can affect the duration of those as well. Personally, I kind of prefer this set to full. Then we have the attack, which is affecting how long it takes before the transient shaper kicks in, and then the sustain, which is obviously how long that is lasting for. So without. So that's compressing the whole signal, basically. And with the sustain set to minus 100, you can have some really short, sharp, transient heavy sounds. This can be great for EDM and really punchy kick drums. We also have these sensitivity dials here, which are quite useful. As you can see, that's the yellow line going for sustain and the green lines going for the attack. That enables us to see the transients and the peaks in our audio waveform as it's played through, and just to gauge where and at what point these processors are playing with the transients. So that is affecting the entire signal. And that is now just affecting the peaks. That's adding sustain to the whole signal. And just the peaks. So the Smack Attack Transient Designer is a great way to control your overall drum sound. Obviously, you could use this on individual microphones as well, which would be very effective on kick and snare particularly. But it enables you to really focus the sound, particularly those heavy beats, the kick drums and the snare drums, to get a really punchy drum sound. For stage 3, I'm going to turn off the Transient Designer and bring in a drum bus compressor. Now, why would we use a compressor over a Transient Designer when it sounds like they're doing similar things? A compressor is basically going to compress all the signal, whereas with the Transient Designer, we have more flexibility in terms of compressing the signals in the middle in between the hits. However, what we want to do is have a little bit of overall compression just to glue the drum mix together slightly. Now, traditionally, if I was just using a compressor on its own, I would have the quickest attack possible with the quickest release, and I'd go crazy, like 10-1 or something like that. You can hear that brings the fullness of the kit out more, and particularly with the toms, it brings out the resonances of the whole kit, which we don't necessarily want, which is again where the Transient Designer is quite useful. In combination with the Transient Designer, so you've got the focus of the Transient Designer, but you've also got the overall control that the compressor's bringing in. Really flexible having the two together. Step number 4 is to add some weight and girth to the drum bus sound, and this involves sending a parallel send to a reverb unit. So I've set up a bus send here, and we're going to click X to get our mixer up, and on my drum bus reverb I have a tiny EQ. EQs are really useful on effects just to clean up what's going into the effect. You can have EQ before or after, or both if you wanted, but I have it going in before just so it doesn't muddy up the effect too much. And then for this I've got the Abbey Road Plates reverb. We've got 4 different plates to choose from. A, B, I quite like the sound of C, it's quite short. Now we have a dampener here as well, and this is effectively how long the reverb plate is going to vibrate for, so therefore the sustain. We have a bass cut, and we have a treble cut and boost there as well. And we can play with the pre-delay, which is quite important because the pre-delay will determine how close or far the reverb feels. So you can play with it until it sounds like a slapback almost, as if you're in a room and you're getting sound off the back wall. But I like pre-delays on reverbs to be, on immediate reverbs, to be about 20 milliseconds. So there's some delay between the signal, but you can still feel the reverb, and it's not, you can't hear it so much. Now obviously that was a lot of reverb on its own, but let's blend it in with the main bus signal. Obviously too much. Without the reverb. Nice, just adding a bit of thickness there. The 5th step is a parallel compression send. So I've set up a bus for that. Pulling up the mixer, we have a little bit of EQ because I don't necessarily want all the frequencies to be hitting the compressor. And I've got the Waves API 2500 here. Now, I've scrolled through, and as always with Waves plugins, there are millions of presets, which is amazing. Loads to choose from. But I stumbled across this one, and I've tweaked it accordingly. Let's listen to this in isolation. The API 2500 has a great visual VU meter, which is indicating our gain reduction, the output level, and also the input level. And we have a threshold, attack, ratio, and release. And we have this variable release as well, which offers a load of flexibility in terms of the release of the compressor. We also have this tone section here with 3 different knee options: soft, medium, and hard. And that is basically at what point the compressor, when the compressor is triggered, how hard it triggers it, whether it's a gentle trigger, a medium trigger, or a really hard, instant squash. And then we've got thrust as well, which is affecting the tonality, and the old and new tonal types. So let's go through these. I'm digging the old. And just to demonstrate the compressor without the EQ, much punchier sound with the EQ, but let's, for the sake of demonstrating, try after as well. I think it works better before because we're really sculpting the sound that we want to be compressed. Now, on this parallel send as well, I've also got the Abbey Road Saturation plugin. This is going to bring in some crunch. Again, gazillions of presets, but I've found one that I've liked and I've just tweaked it slightly because this has quite a powerful EQ section. Now, a saturator is also essentially acting as a compressor because the more we drive the signal into a tape machine or into a preamp, the more we're curtailing those transients and the peaks of the audio signal, which we wouldn't necessarily want to do on the primary bus, but on a parallel bus that's already compressed, we want to do this to get the real crunch and just to flatten the sound out even further. Now, this plugin's particularly good because we can affect either the mid, the side, or the stereo image of this signal. I prefer it doing the stereo. This plugin is particularly useful as well because we can pre-EQ the signal with high, low-pass shelves and a parametric middle, and also we can do that on the output as well. Ooh, too much. So I've used the parametric in the middle there to pull out some low-mid frequencies before they get saturated. And we can do the same on the output as well. If we wanted a telephone effect, we've also got this Compander section, which is basically digitally replicating how a tape machine or a preamp would compress or expand the sound depending on how hard we're pushing into it. So we've got 3 different crossover points here, over 2 crossovers. Let's hear that. And playing between those really affects the cymbals. It's almost like we're going between hi-hats and a stacks or a crash and a china cymbal. Again, this may sound like an extreme, but this is a parallel send. So let's mute the reverb, but blend this in with the original bus sound. All right, so going from what we had before, I will bring in the processing that we've added. So those are 5 great plugins from Waves Audio that you can use in 5 easy steps to completely overhaul the overall sound of your drum bus. Before we move on to the bonus point, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It lets YouTube know that you've liked it and will push the video out to more people. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already for home studio related content such as this. And if you would like free drum loops such as this loop for your music production, head on over to edthorn.com, sign up to the mailing list, and I will email you access to my library of drum loops, which is ever expanding. If you have any requests for drum loops, leave them in the comments below and I'll see what I can do on the next session when I'm recording. Thanks for watching. Let's move on to tip number 6. Talk is a plugin driven by Waves' organic synthesis technology, which detects and analyzes the drum's formant and amplitude and allows you to manipulate the tone and pitch characteristics whilst preserving the natural attack and resonance of the original sound. Now, you can accurately pitch the shift using this Talk by minus 1200 cents to plus 1200 cents, which is an octave either side of the sound. Now, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to really exaggerate these settings. So I'm going to take the frequency range down and lower the pitch by a full octave. And I'm also going to lower the threshold so it's really obvious what I'm doing. And conversely, we could go this up an octave. Which I see being very handy for snare drums. Up an octave for snare drums, down an octave for kick drums. We've also got this focus button here where we can solo and hear exactly what we're changing. So that's making the kit sound fat because the kick drum is becoming quite subby by taking that frequency band down another octave. The plugin's also useful because you've got pretty exact indications of what key you're going to be in. So if you want to re-pitch a snare drum or a bass drum to a specific key, you can do. Really useful if you're a producer. Let's blend this into the full mix. All right, I've been Ed Thorn. Thanks for watching. If you want to purchase any of these plugins, please do so using the links below. It's a great way to support the channel if you found value in this video. Head on over to the website for the free drum loops and more information as well. Thanks for watching. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you all on the next Waves video.